I was born in Ningbo City in Zhejiang to a very average family. When I was 6 years old, my mother passed away. The environment in our household became very trying.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
At the time, there were 4 of us in our household. My eldest sister, since she was small, had lived with my grandmother. I had 2 older brothers and another older sister who lived at home. Before long, my elder sister passed away because she had contracted a lung disease. When I was little, I also had a lung illness for a time. However, my sister died because of this. During the time the Japanese were in China, one of my older brothers was gunned down by the Japanese because they thought he was a resistance army soldier. So after my mother passed away, only one of my older brothers and I were left in the house. My father, who at the time depended on his small business deals, was especially lonely and later remarried. At that time, Ningbo City was just like elsewhere in feudal China. Feudalistic ideas were still very strong. Since within a time span of 1 or 2 years, my mother had passed away and my older brother and sister had also both died, I was accused of being a bai hu xing. This was because people believed that I had caused my family to suffer a whole series of misfortunes. This kind of attitude and thinking stemmed from my stepmother, who represented feudalistic morals that were prevalent at the time. Thus, my childhood was very difficult. When I was 4 years old, my family was in the cigarette business. Therefore, from morning till night, I would sit on a stool and make cigarettes. I could do this really quickly. I had no childhood and no time to play. So when I was young, I did not know how to play. I only knew how to work. Later, my father's small business did not do well. So I went to a factory to do child labor. Later, after China won the anti-Japanese war, my older sister came back to Ningbo to my grandmother's house, where she had grown up.
Where was your grandmother's house?
My grandmother's house was also in Ningbo. My sister had attended elementary school there, and then had attended a sports school and then a nursing school. She had become a midwife and moved away. She had learned that our mom, sister, and brother had passed away. So she wanted to return home to see our grandmother, who had raised her since she was small. As soon as she saw how thin and pallid I had become, and how I was suffering, she asked my father if she could take me with her and let me attend school.
How old were you then?
This was in 1947.
So when you were young, you had never attended any sort of formal schooling?
No, I hadn't. My older sister saw that I had never attended the day of school and saw that I was being oppressed in both my home and at the factory. She said, "I already work, so I will take care of my younger sister." So she took me with her. At that time, she did not have a home either. Wherever she went, I also went with her. Sometimes she deposited me at her friend's house. I then attended school and babysat for her friends.
How much older is your sister than you?
She is 15 years older.
So at that time, she was already in her 20s?
Yes, she was. For a few years living with my sister, I attended 2 or 3 years of school. I skipped a few grades of school. I did not start in 1st grade. Instead, I started in 3rd grade and stayed in school until 5th grade. At that time, Nanjing was liberated. Yes, at the time of liberation, I was in Nanjing. In this way, I started to become educated. In school, I was a very good student. At the time, when I was almost ready to graduate from elementary school, Nanjing was liberated. In my elementary school, there were many college students from the Communications University. Those who were involved in student activism came to advocate the ideas of the Chinese Communist Party and the liberation of China. I was very happy and encouraged. At the time, I vowed that from that day forward, I would definitely study very hard. At this time, I ran into another problem. My older sister had gotten married. She had her first child. She also brought my older brother, who had become an apprentice, to live with us.
Did you and your brother go to live with your sister at the same time?
No, it wasn't the same year. He went later. I went to live with my sister first, and my brother came to stay with us in 1948, right before liberation. At that time, my sister saw that my brother, who was an apprentice in Shanghai, was undergoing difficulties. He made candy in Shanghai, but the pots that he had to work with were extremely hot. Being an apprentice in this industry was a very difficult life. My older sister, who had been working a few years, felt that her financial situation was not too bad. So she not only took me with her, she also took care of my brother. When she was dating her future husband, she told him that she had a requirement that must be met before she would marry him. She wanted to be able to continue to take care of her younger brother and sister. My future brother-in-law agreed.
What kind of person was your brother-in-law?
He was not a bad person. He came from a family that was relatively well off. Before liberation in 1948, he went to the United States to study. He studied medicine and was a really great guy. He came back to China just in time for liberation and then married my sister. By 1949, the year of liberation, they already had a child together. You can imagine that he had taken on a fairly big set of responsibilities. This guy who studied abroad in the United States was married to my sister, who was a midwife. They had a child together, and he also had to take care of his wife's younger brother and sister. In this kind of situation, when he had to make a choice between me and my brother-in-law chose to be responsible for my brother. He told me that it would be better if I went to work. At that time, there were cultural work groups everywhere, and I could have found a job. My older sister did not know that he had said this to me. After he said this to me, my feelings were a little hurt. At that time, I was in school, and even though I was thrilled about liberation, I did not want to take a job in a cultural work group and still wanted to stay in school. Later, I talked with my teacher about my situation. I told my teacher about my experiences in my childhood. Why did I have to rely on my brother-in-law? What problem was I facing? At the time, I had a teacher named Wang Hao. He had originally spent some time at the Taoxingzhi Yucai school. My teacher said, "I will introduce you to a school in Shanghai, a school established by Taoxingzhi. This school especially catered to orphans. You may study there because costs for food, books, tuition, and clothes were all free. You could work and study at the same time." After I heard this, I was really happy. I said to my older sister, "My teacher has told me about a school in Shanghai where all of the school expenses are free. You have a lot of responsibilities now." At the time, my older sister did not agree with this plan, but I persisted and said that I wanted to go. Later, when she saw me off at the train station, she said to me, "Your wings have been hard, but now you want to fly on your own." In her heart, she was very hurt. She said she had originally thought that she would take care of me from elementary through high school and then college. So she was hurt when I wanted to leave her. At the time, I could not tell her what her husband had said to me. Although what my brother-in-law had said to me was hurtful, I could understand where he was coming from. However, I could not tell my sister what he had said to me. So I went by myself to Shanghai and entered the Yucai school. Since we had just been liberated, the conditions at the school were very good. Although at the time Taoxingzhi had already passed away, at the school we still all called each other brothers and sisters. We called male teachers older brother and female teachers older sister. In this way, we created an atmosphere that was similar to a big family. Most of the students at the school were orphans. A minority of the students' family had a little bit of money. These families paid a small amount of tuition. I was a top student, so everything was free for me. Actually, in the past, Taoxingzhi had made some connections with overseas donors. My photograph had been sent to them. Overseas, there were some who wanted to offer assistance. I only discovered this after I had grown up, and especially after I myself had established a school for the poor. At the time, I did not eat very well at all. Since the school was originally in Chongqing, many of the people and students were from Sichuan and Chongqing. They all liked to eat hot, spicy foods. Everything they fed us was cabbage and peppers and hot peppers. As a result, I ended up having sores all over my buttocks.
Was it because you were having a reaction to the spicy food?
Yes, I ate these kind of meals every day. Every day I would study and also do physical labor. At the time, we were growing things in the fields.
At the time, how big was the scope of your school? How many students were there?
There were more than 100 of us. At the time, we were very happy. We also went to the countryside to be little teachers. Tao Xingzhi advocated the practice of little teachers. We would go to the countryside and help farmers learn Chinese characters, etc. In this school, I felt free from worry and felt love everywhere. During this time, I did receive an education of love. In addition, the school was the party's democratic stronghold. Therefore, I was deeply influenced by the democratic ideas and the party's revolutionary ideals. So I entered the school in 1949 and stayed for about 2 years. During this time, I was really able to lay a foundation for myself. I felt this was the first time that I was thoroughly liberated. I felt my individuality was fully set free. I was completely free from any worries and did not feel constrained in any way. Even though our lives were difficult at this time, I really felt a strong sense of independence. So this describes my situation at the school. The Korean War broke out in 1950. Exactly because I had established this kind of foundation, I really loved the new government and really loved New China. So when the war to resist United States aggression and aid Korea began, many students participated in the December 9th campaign. This campaign was to mobilize students to participate in the military cadre school and then go to Korea. During this campaign, I suddenly felt that this time I did not want to stay in school, but instead wanted to go to Korea. Years ago, my brother-in-law urged me not to attend school. However, I went to join the youth high school. But now I wanted to quit school because I had to defend our home and protect our country. Wanted to protect the new government and our new China. So I was the first to get on stage in a mobilization meeting and take a stand. I said, I really enthusiastically loved attending school. At the time, I was pretty good at my studies in literature, and I also read many world-famous authors like Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, etc. And I really loved literature, and I originally thought that someday I would become a female author. But currently our country is seriously threatened, so I decided not to continue my studies. I want to educate myself among the flames of war and write under the baptism of revolution. In the future, I will become an author. The time when I went to do this, I fell and stumbled. Perhaps because my performance in the campaign was outstanding. I really did this out of my strong feeling that we needed to protect our homes and defend our countries in the end. They did not make me go to the cadre school. If I had gone, I definitely would have ended up in Korea. This campaign was organized by the Municipal Youth League and the District Youth League in Dachang, which is the present-day Baoshan. At the time, my school was in the Baoshan area. The Municipal Youth League saw my performance, especially when I ran onto stage, stumbled, but then still delivered my speech about how I had come to Shanghai to study. So they allowed me to stay in school. I became part of the first group of cadres in the Municipal Youth League.
Was this the Communist Youth League?
I entered the Communist Youth League in my school.
What year did you join the league?
It was in 1949. Even though I really was not old enough, this was the first group and I became a member of it. Since I was a league member and my performance was also remarkable, I did work for the league as a committee member in the Dachang district. At the time, they were just about to begin land reform and the building of democratic government. Because of this, I went to the countryside to do work in land reform and helped to build democratic government. Later, I transferred from the District League Committee to the League Committee for the city suburbs. This was the Shanghai Suburban Youth League. My work was connected with the countryside. I was there until 1954 when the Suburban Youth League was abolished. We were then divided and sent to different work units. I, along with the man who would become my future husband, was transferred to the City League Committee and worked there until the end of the Cultural Revolution. I was then transferred from the Municipal League Committee to the Women's Federation of Shanghai.
What year did you begin to work at the Women's Federation?
That was in 1978.
And what year did you get transferred to the Municipal Youth League?
1954. So in 1954, I went to the Municipal Youth League. Then I officially left in 1978. During this period, following the party policy, I went to the countryside to work as a teacher for 8.5 years. I felt that during these 14 or 15 years as a cadre of the Communist Youth League and as a member of the Young People's Work Teams, everyone was full of vigor and vitality. I myself was also continuing to develop in my work, both in the countryside and in schools. In addition, through my work in the Communist Youth League, I became to know my future husband and friend, Ye Zukang. We entered the party together when we were 18 years old. Then we dated for about 5 or 6 years. Then in 1959 we got married and soon had a child. At the time, I felt very fortunate to have my career, my family, and my love. Other people always said that we were such a happy couple. He really had a lot of talent. On the eve of the Great Cultural Revolution, after I studied at the Central Party Youth Corps School, I did research on pedagogy at the Youth Corps School and was engaged in youth education. Even though then at the time I also was impacted by the Cultural Revolution, however, it was a massive movement and everyone was impacted. I did not feel as if it had any special impact on me. At the time, all of the old cadres had been treated unjustly. I was rather young and did not have any real worries. They made allowances for the things that we did. Later, after the Cultural Revolution and after I went to the Women's Federation, 2 situations emerged. This was when I started to get interested in feminist issues.
Feminist ideas?
Well, let me explain. Perhaps because when I went to the Women's Federation, someone at the Municipal Youth League had given me an introduction or for some other reason. At any rate, the responsibilities that the Women's Federation placed upon me were very heavy. They wanted me to start our work on the senior women intellectuals in the spheres of science, education, culture, and medicine in Shanghai. So I worked to establish women's organizations in colleges, cultural organizations, and the Academy of Science. In this way, I felt like I had entered into a splendid world. I came to know a lot of female scientists, female professors, actresses, and female athletes. At the time, I got to meet and work with many celebrities. I deeply felt that there was an abundance of talented women in China. It was then that I got to meet women like Zhang Rongfang and Qin Yi. I also felt very encouraged at the time. During the process of doing my work, I came to realize that their personal development was not an easy one. They had reached the heights of their professions. However, when you compared them with those in the mid-levels in their fields, they were the minority. The majority of women could not reach the upper echelons of their professions. It certainly was not easy for this small group of women to get to the top. It was like they had to struggle and fight to get where they were. like having to behead six generals at 5 different passes. It was very difficult for the many talented women, female scientists, and actresses at the mid-level to get to the top. Women comrades did most of the work on a daily basis. However, when it came time for evaluations and promotions, if a man and women were compared together, inevitably it would be the man who would move ahead. Because of this, often when women cadres would reach this critical stage, they would not be promoted and then remain at their mid-level positions. Thus, women more often became involved in auxiliary work and generally important tasks were assigned to men. Women most likely took mid-level positions, and very few reached the upper echelons. At the beginning, I had not been influenced by international feminist thought. I was not equipped with any feminist theory. I only knew the idea of the equality between men and women. This idea was raised as early as the Maoist era. At the time, I took several measures. The first measure was that recipients for the March 8th Red Flag bearers in the fields of science, education, culture, and health must be selected and praised every year. At that time, it was almost impossible for women to receive honor titles, such as model workers and outstanding workers, since men and women were evaluated together and only men got recognized. But the honor title of March 8th Red Flag bearers was reserved for women. Although the city's Women's Federation had a limited quota of the number of women they could nominate, each unit and various systems were each allowed to do evaluations and choose recipients for this award. This happened every year. At the city level, we granted such awards biennially or triennially. In this way, women would be exposed so that they could shine. This revealed their talents. This activity was carried out with great enthusiasm. The science, education, culture, and health spheres were the first to have this evaluation system in Shanghai. Women's Federation started from Shanghai, when they tried to promulgate this practice. I was engaged in the foundational work for this. I did not have any subordinates. I was both the supervisor and the clerk. I happily busied myself with this work. In the meantime, I proposed a slogan, "Clear out the dust and excavate the pearls." The meaning of this slogan was that very many women were silently working. They all had achievements, but they remained buried. So our women's organization took on the work of cleaning out the dust so that people's achievement could be revealed. We did not try to create talented people. The Women's Federation could not cultivate talents because it was a mass organization. However, during the process of women's growth, we could seek out talented people, either by selecting the March 8th Red Flag Bearers Award winners or recommending people to the leaders. We figuratively used the image of cleaning out the dust. These women were often buried under the dust, and we wanted to unearth them. We did an excellent job at doing this kind of work. We all worked together at discovering talented women. In addition to honoring outstanding women workers, we also had the yearly activity of finding shining women around us. It was to get together and talk about the outstanding women around us and their achievements. In this way, we would develop together. In this way, we could gain some progress in terms of equal rights. Some women who later became leaders in Shanghai advanced as March 8th Red Flag Bearers. This was one thing that we were involved in. The second thing that we were involved in occurred after 1985. The Women's Federation called on me to help with establishing a cadre school, probably as a promotion for me. I went to help to establish the first women's cadre school. The Women's Federation had not had any women cadre schools until I went in 1985 to help to establish this. I was the first principal of the school. I went to prepare for the establishment of the Women's Cadre School. After it was built, the first matter at hand was to establish a curriculum with courses that aimed to enhance women's talents. Every woman cadre who came to the school had to attend this training class. At this time, we did not have any teaching materials. Ye Zonghai from East China Normal University and I initiated the Association of Female Talentology. At the time, he had only finished a manuscript, the first draft. Because at the time computers had not come into common use, the manuscript was written by hand. He had already sent the manuscript to Northern Women and Children's Publishing House, but the publishing house wanted a guarantee of the sale of 2,000 copies in order to publish the manuscript. I was just about to offer this class, so I got hold of a copy of his manuscript, proofread and printed it, and then used this in my first semester of class. Of course, the outcome of using this material was very good.
At the time, how many students did your school have?
At the time, the school did not even have a dormitory. My first class was held in a space that we borrowed from a ballet school. It had about 50 or 60 people. Then I held my second class. Eventually, because the women's cadre school was different from other, more general schools, and was to train cadres, so every year we had several hundred people. Now, since we produced some results, many women cadres, some of whom had attended our classes and wanted to take some books back to their branches to teach, there was a demand for the material. In class, you could find, for example, Area Women's Federation presidents. So I immediately was able to guarantee that the publishing house could sell 2,000 copies of Ye Zonghai's book. Of course, some people said, "Are you crazy? You need so much money, and the women's cadre school does not have that kind of money." Since I chose to use his book in my classes, Ye Zonghai was able to publish his book.
Where did the funds come from to purchase these 2,000 copies of the book?
At that time, the country had allocated funds to us that were in total about 130,000 yuan for the year. This was to include the rent for the classrooms, workers' wages, and so on. We saved some of this money of this funding for the textbooks.
So the money came from the funding from Women's Federation?
These were the funds that the country allocated. After the Women's Cadre School was established, I applied to the government for funds for the year, about 130,000 yuan. Until the present day, we still only get 130,000 yuan.
After so many years?
Yes. It is the source for the wages, the rent, and so on. We only get this much. The Women's Federation does not allocate funds for these things. This was the second matter that I did at that time. Then I did the third thing. The first was every year to select recipients for the March 8th Red Flag Bearers Award. The second was the campaign to clean out the dust to excavate the pearls. The third was to...
那么这个是一面就公正。那么我觉得我到那个粉碎四人帮以后，特别是改革开放以后，85年以后。
The third was to offer a course at the school that emphasized making the best use of their special ability so that they would learn skills and advance in their careers. This third project was larger in scale and would benefit many more people than the first two projects. After the Gang of Four was crushed, and after their policy of reform and opening, especially after 1985, I think I started to have some feminist ideas for two reasons. The first reason was because of my experiences at work. I really felt that it was not an easy task for women to achieve their full potential. In society, the starting line for women's career advancement, along with many other aspects, was unfair. We could also feel inequality in terms of the standards set up for women and the heavy workload for them. The other reason was personal. By that time, in 1983, my husband had passed away due to lung cancer. He left behind two children, a son who had just entered university and a son who had just finished elementary school. So in addition to finding myself in the position of being a single mother, I also took on the responsibility of preparing from ground zero for the establishment of the Women's Cadre School. Imagine that. In 1984, they asked me to help to prepare for the establishment of the Women's Cadre School. Therefore, how did I feel at that time? In my life, I had three very unfortunate incidents. When I was a child, I mourned the death of my mother. At the time, I suffered from the oppression of feudal ideas, such as being Bai Hu Xing. I yearned for liberation at that time, and sought to be liberated exactly because of my childhood experience. I still remember that in the 1960s, I saw the movie Red Women's Battalion. When I watched the movie, I simply found myself with tears streaming down my face. I felt as if the situations that the movie characters found themselves in closely resembled my own experiences. I had just started to work at the municipal committee of the Youth League at the time, and my new job helped me to deal with some of my emotional wounds. The second unfortunate incident was the death of my husband when I was middle-aged. Even though at the time I worked at the Women's Federation, there were still subconscious feudal ideas that existed among these women in our offices. My first thought was to wonder why I couldn't be promoted to an office-level cadre at the Women's Federation. Instead, they wanted an orphaned widowed mother to start from ground zero to prepare for the establishment of the Women's Cadre School. At the time, I was a single mother who had to care for 2 children. I did not have any relatives in Shanghai. We had to start from zero. We did not even have a small patch of land or a room, and I did not have a staff. We started from ground zero to open a Women's Cadre School. At the time, I borrowed a place to teach class from the ballet school. This was a place in the countryside. I remember at the time, the TV series Ah Xin was showing. Every day, I would accompany students to watch this. At that time, my older son was living on campus at his university, and my younger son was often home by himself. Nobody looked after him. In my heart, I really felt extremely worried, and I always thought about him, but I did not know what to do. Why did I have to deal with this? It was obvious that I did not have the ability, nor did I have to take on this job. I was, after all, alone and weak. This was the first time that I felt that as a widow and single mother, I was discriminated against and was treated coldly. I did not receive care from others. I felt that among women often there was a subconscious way of thinking. For instance, when a woman does not have a husband on the one hand, she receives a lot of sympathy. However, actually, hidden behind this is the idea that the woman does not have strength and does not have someone she can rely on. Moreover, frequently, people had this kind of theory. You, old Wang, do not take enough care of your family. You work from morning till night. This is why you suffer from this kind of result. Later, my boss said to me, if you have to take care of your husband and look after your 2 children, you can request a long-term leave of absence. We can look after you. After my boss said this, I was really hurt. During this time, what I most needed was for them to inspire me. I did not want to retreat. They seem to mean, when you find yourself in this situation where you feel like you have lost everything, why do you still have to struggle to show you are strong? Go and look after your family. After my husband died, others said to me, well, you will soon be 50 years old. You should go and look after your children, retire early, and so on. During this time, I thought about when I was young, and I was looked down upon by others because I lost my mother. They even treated me as the girl who was the root cause of disaster. When I became middle-aged, I found myself mourning my husband. Now, I was made to feel that I had not done well taking care of my family, and that it would be best if I retired early. This left me feeling very uneasy. On the one hand, when my husband became sick, I tried my best so that I did not give up my work. And I also tried my best to help him lengthen his life. Originally, the doctor said that he only had 3 months to live. However, under my care, he lived for another 3 years. During these 3 years, I would work during the day and take care of him in the evening. In the beginning, I looked after him when he was in our home, but later he had to stay in the hospital, so I had to sleep in the hospital at night. I only had someone temporarily help me with my son at home. During the day, she came to my house and looked after my son when I was at work. We also faced some economic difficulties. I received support from my older brother and older sister too. So my husband lived for 3 more years, and I was resolute about not asking for time off from work. I said, if under these circumstances I pulled back from my work, on the one hand, I would have no way of maintaining my home financially. If he really left me, I would not have any way of supporting my family. After he passed away, people had the idea that since I would be 50 years old soon, that I should retire early and take care of my children and ask my sons to support me after they started to work. I believed what was important for me, for us, was that I should pursue my own career and my children should make progress in their studies. But we had to struggle to succeed and develop our talent while enduring hardship. I thought that the best way to educate my children was to influence them in subtle ways through my own actions. So, after my husband passed away, I took care of the kids by myself. I said to them, "You both work hard at your studies and Mom will also work hard." I took on all the house chores by myself. I had stopped hiring the helper by then, so I had to go to work during the day and do the house chores at night. Sometimes I would find myself still doing housework at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I did not make my children wash a single dish. Later, my older son graduated from university and began to work. I also sent my second son to attend university and supported him until he graduated. Thus, I felt that the female intellectuals in the spheres of science, education, culture, and health had to walk a very difficult path in order to become successful. Many of us, including me, had suffered setbacks. So I felt that for women to move towards achieving their potential and realizing their talents, they must have a kind of progressive way of thinking. If they do not, then often they will give up in difficult situations. Why did I want to establish the curriculum that would help women achieve their potential at the Women's Cadre School? This was the first time when I myself was undergoing the most difficult time, so this made sense to me. After 1988, I started to foster and develop the Association of Female Talentology. This was also because I was thinking about how there were many women who found themselves in the same situation as me. In the lives of these women, the path to advance had also been very tough. We all had to climb over one mountaintop after the other. If we did not have a strength of pursuing liberty ourselves and striving for self-strengthening, then women would have no way of getting past these kinds of extreme difficulties in life. Therefore, after 1988, I talked with Ye Zhonghai about using the study of making the best use of the theory of talented women as the foundation to initiate an organization. At that time, there was the National Association of Talentology, and the local level there was the Farmers Association of our Association of Female Talentology. There was also the Association of Talentology for Cultural Workers. We submitted a proposal and it was approved after June 4th. In December 1989, in Zhenhai, in Zhejiang, the Chinese Association of Female Talentology was established. I think at that time, besides the idea that women should strive to develop, regardless of all kinds of difficult situations, and must have the spirit of self-strengthening and independence, there was a theory that also influenced me. At that time, there was a theory that had come from Japan that was called the 3 Studies for 10,000 Days.
What does that mean?
In a person's life, there are 3 periods of 10,000 days of learning. From age 0 to 29 years old, there are 10,000 days, where the primary focus is studying. This is the time when you are building a foundation. From age 29 to 59, there are also 10,000 days. During this period, you are working. You become the backbone of society. In order to continuously develop, you certainly must persist in your studies. Since only by persisting in your studies can you fully develop in the second stage and continuously make progress so you can climb to the peak, be successful, and fully realize your talents. During the third period of 10,000 days, when you are 59 years old until after you are 81 years old, you become a person who has accumulated the rich experiences of a lifetime. At this stage, you not only have little burden, but you also have accumulated rich experiences. If you study now, it is a period of 10,000 days when you can soar to a higher level. This theory inspired me in a very big way. At that time, when I initiated the association, I was about to retire soon. At that time, the retirement age for women officials was not 60, but 55, and I was going to be 55 in 1990. I started to prepare for my work 2 years prior to my actual retirement. Some people asked me, "What are you doing? In the past you were always working. Even though we wanted you to take a leave and take care of your household, you did not do this. Now, after so much hardship, you have been able to support your 2 sons through their college lives. Now, the older has started to work and the younger one is already a sophomore student." This was a feat in and of itself. Now you will soon retire and you still want to work? At that time, this theory of 10,000 days was really inspirational to me. I felt that the greatest thing that China wasted was its human resources. Today, a lot of women retire when they're in their 40s. A person does not have very long to work in her lifetime and bring to light her value. Even though you are not yet old, you already feel that you are old. At that time, no one would retire at the age of 45. When I retired, the official retirement age for officials became 60. So I believed in this theory of 3 studies for 10,000 days and used it to mobilize our sisters all over the country. We raised funds by ourselves. We gathered together to establish the countrywide association of female talentology. So the thinking behind the establishment of this association was very pure. We wanted to research theories of bringing forth women's talent and guide everyone so they could achieve their potential. So I continuously spread the theory of the 3 studies for 10,000 days. I told everyone, it does not matter if women are currently in their careers or if they are already retired. This is all artificial. Now in the West, there are a lot of people who are 75 and still have not retired. Doesn't this prove that the line is artificial? Why do we have to give up to this? At the time of the 1995 World Women's Conference, one of the major things that the Chinese Association of Female Talentology wanted to do was to organize a delegation to participate in the World Women's Conference. Although we did not have someone to back us up, nor did we have much funding. I was the Secretary General in the association at that time, so the association asked me to organize our delegation. After a year of preparation, we did go and participate in the World Women's Conference in Huairou. China had 42 forums, and we were the only non-governmental organization that relied upon our own funding. How did we come up with the funding for this? Some of the women entrepreneurs from our group donated some of the money as individuals. After we received the approval from the All China Women's Federation, they also gave us some funding. At that time, we collected more than 100,000 yuan in order to complete this important project. We were called the Chinese Human Resources Development Research Board and the Association of Female Talentology. We were registered under the State Planning Commission. Prior to this, we had been registered under the National Human Resources Development Department. This year, This work we did at the time was extremely successful. After the World Women's Conference, we unceasingly promoted some large-scale activities. In Chongqing, we held the Western China Women's Talents Development Research Seminar. Last year, in Jiangxi, we held the Urbanization and Women's Development Research Seminar. We had all kinds of people from every level of society. Young people in their 30s and 40s composed the background of our association.
Which areas did people come from?
Places like Jiangxi, Shanxi, Heilongjiang, Inner Mongolia, Chongqing, Sichuan, Liaoning, Jiangsu, and so on.
Like branches?
Yes, they all have branches of our association. Currently, they all already have provincial-level academic associations. There are old, middle-aged, and young people in these research boards. There are even plenty of people over 70 years old. There are also a lot of young people from about 20 to 30 years old. These people are extremely active in our seminars. The older people have done a lot of academic research. They have been continuously engaged in scholarly research in the field of female talentology for decades. Our research board focuses on academic issues that are actually related to problems. I think after the Research Association was established, one of our tasks was to adjust social changes over time. For example, in Shanghai, we also held a senior seminar which addressed women's intellectual development in the new era.
How often does the association generally conduct large-scale national seminars like this?
About a year and a half. There is a process to this. If we did not take enough time, the project would not be successful. If we hold it every year, we would not have enough time to prepare, because many of us are not released from our regular work activities to take on these other duties, and we do not have professional staff. We do our jobs as social work. I heard the past. After the World Conference on Women in September of 1995, in the same year in June, I had established a women's school for the general populace.
I think its full name is Women's Experimental Correspondence School for Further Studies.
The whole process kind of involved several things. While we were forming the Association of Female Talentology, I found myself traveling to many different places in the country. I realized that there were many good things happening in the country, but at the same time, I realized there were good persons The whole process kind of involves several things. When we were forming the Association of Female Talentology, I found myself traveling to many different places in the country. I realized that there were many good things happening in the country, but at the same time, it remained difficult for women to succeed. I discovered that our country has undergone enormous changes during the process of the implementation of the reform and opening policy. The country had become prosperous and more powerful, and the people had become wealthier. However, after traveling from place to place, I discovered I had gradually theorized the changes in terms of three big differences. The first was regional differences. For example, like those of Shanghai and Inner Mongolia. In Shanghai, even if a woman was laid off from her job, she would still live in a good apartment building. However, there were a lot of women in Inner Mongolia who lived in mud houses. The second big difference is that of the difference in the groups. There is a portion of the people who have become rich since the reform, and after all, this is a good thing. However, the rich people seem to grow richer while the poor seem to grow poorer. Thus, people are increasingly polarized. Today, our government is taking the problem of disadvantaged groups seriously. We all realize that the countryside is really poor, the farmers are in dire straits, the agriculture is really bad. But in the beginning of the 1990s, when I first discovered this problem, no one was talking about this. Possibly because I came from an average family, I could really empathize with how people spent their days in these places. I felt this conference in 1993 after I had a meeting in Taiyuan in Shanxi province. After the conference was finished, the conference organizers planned a trip to Wutai Mountain for us representatives. I recall that this day did not fall on a Sunday. I saw a little girl who was selling things while she was at the same time reading her book. I asked her, "Today is not Sunday. Why don't you go to school to study instead of reading and selling things here?" She told me, "Economic conditions in my family are not very good, so I had to discontinue my studies. That I really want to study and go to school." At that time, after I heard what she said, I suddenly thought about how I had gone to the Yutsai school because of my special family situation. So at the time, I felt that the need for schools like the Taoxingzhi school had not passed. Why not establish a girls' school for the general populace and let these children have an opportunity to study while they work? This little girl was engaged in small-scale business to support her family, while at the same time, she was persisting in her studies. After I saw this, my heart felt pain. I thought of my own childhood, and I felt that we needed to continue to develop Taoxingzhi's idea under new historical conditions. Taoxingzhi's idea is captured in his slogan, holding total devotion to our cause, but expecting nothing in return. Spread love to every place under the sky. I was a student who came from the Taoxingzhi school. Currently, I had already achieved so much, so I felt that I should establish this school. After I returned to Shanghai, I raised my courage and went to the then Shanghai Bureau of Education Office of Societal Strength. It is today's Board of Education. I introduced myself to them and said that I wanted to apply to run a women's school for the general populace. The name of the school was to be the Women's Experimental Correspondence School for Further Studies. At that time, I did not know it would become an institute. I told them that I did not have anything at that time. I was very frank with them. I said I did not have any stuff, did not even have a small room, and did not have a single cent of money. But I possibly had an advantage. I originally was a student of the Taoxingzhi Yutsai school. I was gradually influenced by Taoxingzhi's idea of education. I was traveling in the country. I realized that there were three big things that were not balanced. At that time, nobody had raised this issue of these kinds of inequality. But today, our government always mentions inequality. This is not to say that my theoretical level was that sophisticated, but I was able to discuss this little girl's situation. I said I could run a correspondence school. This type of school would not need dormitories. I would run ads through the Young Women magazine. This magazine was published in Shanghai. The magazine only cost 1 yuan per issue, so it was cheap, but managed extremely well. It was distributed in very remote places and had a distribution rate of over 220,000 volumes. At that time, at the magazine publishing house, there was an editor named Chen Li. She told me that the magazine was distributed to many medium-sized and small cities and was connected to the countryside. The magazine was extremely popular and young women really liked it. Moreover, I told them that the magazine had already agreed to publish my advertisement to recruit students for free. Thus, I used this magazine to recruit students. Then they asked me where we would get the textbooks from. I said that the textbook that I would use was Writing for Young Women. It was compiled by an editor from this magazine and was published by the People's Publishing House. The teaching materials were composed of 10 lectures for an entire year. Every 2 months, there would be another lecture. It only cost 400 yuan for a year. Moreover, I asked a professor from the Textile University to write a book called Clothing Design and Tailoring. So, we had teaching materials. By working through a Chinese business school, we also had materials from a marketing class. This teaching material was written extremely well. So I would offer 3 majors and had teaching materials for these courses. But I still did not have any staff. I asked them, I told them that I was also the principal of the Women's Cadre School. In addition, I was asked to do office work in the Women's Federation. So I had a lot of connections in the circle. I was also an initiator of the Association of Female Talentology. So I had an advantage to run this school. This was a correspondence school. I wanted the school to attract students from around the country. I did not want Shanghai to be the emphasis of our work. Why? Because Shanghai already had a women's cadre school, and I was its principal. I did not want to replicate something that had already been done. In the first couple of years, most of the students were from outside of Shanghai. After they registered, I sent them the teaching materials. After they studied on their own and did their homework, I asked some of the senior-level Shanghai teachers to check and grade their work for them. For instance, the director of the editorial department of Literature Report graded the students'
Were all of the teaching materials given to the students free of charge?
Well, at that time, I did not have any money. In the beginning, I charged 50 yuan per year. However, if the students wrote to me and told me that they were having financial difficulties, I did not charge them anything. Over 30% of the students were in this situation. There was an incident that made an extremely deep impression on me. There was a young woman who had come from Guizhou to find work in Guangdong. At that time, my teaching materials cost 70 yuan. She used the money that she had saved from working. She registered for 3 classes, which altogether cost 210 yuan. She said, this kind of teaching style, the high level of the teaching material, and the careful grading and corrections from the teachers enabled me to continue to study while working, even during the time when I did not have any money. In the beginning, I charged to study language especially well and would be hired by companies. Some of the students wrote articles that were published. There were some people who studied sewing and tailoring and then opened their own shops. Some people became involved in sales. Such were the results of our endeavor. This girl was only 19 years old at that time. She had long hair. She said, I don't ask you to waive my fees. I only ask you to give me knowledge. Only by having knowledge can I completely change my destiny so that I do not have to do menial jobs. In reality, I have an extremely wide range of interests. I like singing, dancing, drawing, and making clothing. If I remain a good student, then I will have many kinds of talents and I will continue to develop in the future. After we mailed the first batch of teaching materials, we decided to only charge her for 1 class and to refund the money for the costs for the other 2 classes. About this time, we received a letter from her friend. That year, Guangzhou May mountain area had been hard hit by a major flood, and she had drowned. In the letter it said, "We are sorry to tell you the sad news of the death of our beloved friend. We found this completed batch of homework in her bedroom. We saved this batch of work as a permanent memory of her." This letter also asked if we could still send all of the teaching materials. Later, I did send all of the teaching materials along with a poem that I wrote. I asked our companion to read this at her memorial and then burn it to commemorate her. Her name was Luo Xuelian. I said, "You embraced ideals and hope in your 19 years. You came from the countryside to work at the textile mill. So you came from the countryside to the city to pursue your dreams. But now you have passed away, but never left us, since you will always remain in our hearts." I keep this poem pressed under the glass top of my table. I said to Chen, my assistant, "We should keep this memory. No matter currently how difficult it is, we must not give up." It truly was extremely difficult, although the scale of our school was larger and larger. At that time, I worked at the Women's Federation. Chen Ning was a cadre who specialized in labor issues from the Workers' University. The 2 of us used our spare time to work on this. All the school fees that we received, we used to pay the teachers who corrected and graded the students' homework. We only paid them 5 yuan for each homework book that they corrected.
So these teachers are also, for the most part, volunteering their work?
Yes, among my students, there are about 20 to 30% who do not pay fees. I feel that these women themselves demonstrate a kind of spirit that can be called feminist. Women must be strong and should struggle for themselves. Later, we edited a publication titled New Buds. This journal was distributed to our students. Since we are a correspondence school, we cannot teach the students face-to-face. So I wanted to use this journal to encourage them to persist and study and study even more. After 1998, the emphasis of my work shifted from the whole country to Shanghai more specifically. Why did I want to focus on Shanghai? In the past, I had a principle. Shanghai already had a women's cadre school, so I did not want to focus on recruiting students from Shanghai. At that time, the Association of Female Talentology was established in an office of the Women's Federation. I heard numerous stories of people committing suicide at that time. The first case of a woman worker who committed suicide really shook me to the core. This woman worker was laid off from her work and her husband then divorced her. The courts decided to give the child to her. So under these dual stressors, one morning she went to the produce market and bought some green vegetable peels. She then made a bowl of vegetables and noodles for her child. The child went to school, and then she hung herself in her home. As for me, hearing about this made me feel terribly pained and miserable. Why did I want to help people that were far away when there were so many people close at hand who needed help? Shanghai had so many women workers who were laid off. Moreover, the number of the women in this situation continued to grow. If they would come to my school to take courses, then I believe this would give them some hope for the future. The situation they were in was only temporary. So I talked with Chen, and we decided we should return to Shanghai. So we first went from Shanghai to a focus on most of the country, and then changed again to focus on Shanghai. We wanted to integrate face-to-face teaching with correspondence courses. Because of this, in Shanghai we established an education center. The main reason for this was because we targeted laid-off women workers. In other areas, I also went to Chifeng in Inner Mongolia, its most impoverished area, and established a correspondence education center. Here we would hold agricultural technology training. There was no way to offer an agricultural technology training class via a correspondence course because the teachers could not correct homework, since each area has its own weather and geographic conditions. The teachers cannot work via correspondence. So we offered an agricultural technology class over there. We compiled teaching materials here and then sent them over. Currently, we have already offered this course continuously for the past 4 years. We have had more than 500 students in Inner Mongolia take this training.
Were all of the students women?
Yes, the cost for their tuition came from a scholarship fund for poor women.
How did this scholarship money for poor women come about?
I had teaching centers in Shanghai and 2 other provinces, Chifeng in Inner Mongolia and Yongqiu in Jiangxi, which was an old revolutionary area. Originally, I had also wanted to establish a center in Yunnan, but I really lacked the ability to do what I would have liked. My funds were really limited. I worked hard to get a little funding from the government to offer trainings for laid-off women workers in Shanghai. They gave up support because the problem of laid-off workers and unemployment became more and more serious, but the government did not know how to deal with it. In addition, we worked to get contributions from the Shanghai Charitable Foundation as well as the Hong Kong Bank. Also, we applied to the Global Women's Foundation for funding. There was also some money that we had accumulated ourselves. At that time, when the school was being established, I myself contributed 10,000 yuan. There were also 2 women entrepreneurs who attended the World Women's Conference who both contributed 10,000 yuan. 3 of us contributed 30,000 yuan. We used this money as the base of our funding. In general, my school did not maintain a staff or a facility. We would go anywhere there were students. We would temporarily borrow a classroom in order to limit our expenses. The places that we taught were all transitory. None of them were fixed places to teach. This was because it was difficult for these women to all gather in one place. Moreover, the price of public transportation in Shanghai is very expensive. I would spend 20 to 30 yuan on transportation per day. How could these laid-off women workers all gather in one place? We had to go to wherever they were. Up until the present, our school does not have a fixed location. Currently, in Chenghuang Temple, we have a house that is a little bigger than 300 square meters. A private entrepreneur saw that we had really been down on our luck and lent us the house. This was the first floor of a run-down house. When it rains hard enough outside this room, there is a light rain inside the room. During the rainy season, everything inside becomes full of mildew. The room also has very poor ventilation. When the weather is very hot, the room becomes very stuffy. There are 3 classrooms. We just have to make the best of the situation. Despite all of these problems, it is a better It's better than having no place at all. In this way, I save the rent and I can use all the funds that we have to help the women workers who have been laid off in Shanghai. Although they have a bit of money, it is still not enough. Especially these past 2 years, I started a family knitting and processing industry. After going through all kinds of specialized trainings, I later discovered that the employment rate was very low. Moreover, many of these jobs were unstable. How do you deal with this problem? I thought if women did knitting, they could use their free time productively. They would not have to leave their house and could carry on a family processing industry. This program was started in 2000. 3 years' time has passed. We have seen the establishment of this specialized industry, training courses, and then the formation of an organized cooperative. Currently, this group is flourishing. I train more than 70 people at Huangsha Island. In the first year, on average, people increased their income by 800 yuan. The second year, their income increased by 1,200 yuan. This year, they are really doing terrific. Up to the present, in 2 months, there are already some people who have increased their income by more than 1,000 yuan. What's going on? Their skills are getting better and better, and their business is increasing. Before, they made about a half a yuan to a yuan to process an article of clothing, but now they make at least 10 times what they used to. We have a cooperative, the Huangsha Island Cooperative at Tonghe Street in Baoshan. The members of this cooperative were all Shanghai farmers. There's also the Danqing Garment Cooperative on Pingyang Street. Now they are all developing markets and receiving orders on their own. They were all former students who we trained. In the beginning, when the Labor Bureau established specialties, this was not included. Later, they saw that this was a very good channel for part-time employment, and then they included us. They also gave us a little bit of funding. We have become one of the training bases of Project 4050. Currently, we are developing a training class for 10,000 women who have come from other areas outside of Shanghai. This project is being held by a charitable organization. They know that we specialize in this area and that we did a great job developing the family processing industry. As a result, they chose 12 spots in the whole city. We are one of them. We currently are training 400 to 500 of our sisters who have come from other areas. They originally migrated to work in Shanghai. Later they became Shanghai wives, but they do not work now. Since we have begun the trainings, I have always taught the first class. The basic content of the first class includes such things as me talking about the objectives of the class. I address the issue of how education has become a money-making industry, but that this is not the purpose of our school. We do not make any money by offering these classes. I explain how we depend on our own accumulated resources, as well as several applications that we have made for funding. I usually tell the students all of these things. The money that we receive from outside funding is all used to make the students' training better, so I hope that they really treasure the opportunity to take the classes. The second main thing that I discuss is that women must have practical skills. Only then can you obtain the social position in your household that you should have. You should not admit that you have lost your job because you are less capable. You are not less capable. You are making sacrifices for the country, which is undergoing the process of a realignment of the social structure. As long as you take your studies seriously, you can start over and have a better development. The third thing that I will speak about is economic independence. This really is the only way that women will obtain the rightful position in the household and in society. We stress this point, especially to those women migrants. You should not think that because you have gotten married to a man from Shanghai, that you will have stability. Why are some people always bullied or treated unfairly? This is because they do not have their own independent source of income. Even though your husband and your in-laws are very good to you, in the final analysis, you are always the person who has no source of income in the house. Thus, it is almost impossible for you to have a very high position in the family household. And this is not even mentioning your position in society. It is possible for you to become a true citizen of society since you do not participate in this labor pool in society. You do not make the contributions to society that you should. I always discuss these ideas with my students. Thus, they have very deep feelings for our school. Why did I want to work on establishing a school for economically disadvantaged women and organize cooperatives at the same time? Other people said to me, "You educate the poor and do not make any money, and also even have to sometimes use your own money." The two of us, teacher Chen-Ning and I, were busy from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. We worked hard from Monday until Sunday and never took any vacation. We were even busy in the evenings. We were very, very tired. But I still moved on to organize a cooperative. Why was I doing this? After these years of trainings, I think that women are stronger when they form a team and organize. If they do not follow the path of collective development, they often find themselves isolated and weak. Moreover, I still want to instill in these students a kind of moral character. You have to not only develop yourself and work to free yourself from poverty, but also pull your sisters by the hand so that we can all succeed together. One time, I had an unexpected opportunity to get to know people from the Chinese International Labor Organization during a trip to Beijing because of an introduction from Bing Xin's daughter, Wu Qing. This organization was founded in 1937 and was organized by the leaders of the party. During the War of Resistance against Japan, the main aim of the group was to help impoverished communities. It solved the problems of the poor by organizing them into cooperatives, as well as providing provisions that were needed because we were involved in the Sino-Japanese War at home. The objectives of the organization were work hard, work together, unify and cooperate, and common enrichment. Thus, I asked a person from the labor organization to come to Shanghai to give the students a training class on the spirit of cooperatives. From the time forward, I organized the students to walk on the path of work hard, work together, unify and cooperate, and common enrichment. As students, we should hold hands and walk forward together. At that time, when I lectured to the students in class, I said, "You have 3 paths of development after you complete the training here. The first path is to try to get a recommendation for a job where they only enroll those who are outstanding. In this kind of work, you must certainly try to adapt. It certainly does not matter if you work for the government or for a private company. You certainly have to adapt to that working environment in order to continually develop. The second path is to start an independent undertaking. In this way, you can realize your own value and talents. However, this path also has its own risks. The third path is to start an undertaking with a unified cooperative group. In this way, you can work together for common enrichment. Isn't this a better way of doing things? Everyone can work together and depend on each other. Moreover, in your heart, you must also consider many other people, and not only think of yourself. Now I feel that there have been many really diligent students who have chosen this last path. Because they share the spirit of unity and cooperation, they have done a good job in marketing."
So far, how many successful cases are there?
The Huangsha Island Cooperative already has been in operation for 3 years. The Tonghe Street Cooperative has only been in operation for a little more than a year, but it has developed very rapidly. In the beginning, they took orders from local foreign trade private enterprises that needed some work-added products. For instance, they made sleeve cuffs for wool sweaters or neckbands. The additional labor cost was only about ½ yuan to 1 yuan. At that time, the more they made, the better they did. However, in fact, their income was still extremely low. I also organized people to go out and get more orders like this. But after we did this for a while, we thought that we should think of other means. As a result, they themselves designed beaded purses. They then put their products in the market. This place has now been turned into a base for the production of gifts.
礼品基地来那礼品呢？你想打珠宝，那你加工费
以前是为别人干，现在是自己创业。
创业就是这么一个。
In the past, the cooperative produced things for others. Now, are they themselves taking on their own projects?
Yes, the third cooperative is the Danqing Garment Production Cooperative. The name of this cooperative sounds similar to the characters for Danqing, but actually the name means single parent. Several of the core members of this group are single parents. Some are divorced, some have lost their spouses, and some are laid off from work. These several people who have come together and cooperated to make clothes. Now they have a lot of orders for processing clothes. These three cooperatives are all operating rather successfully. Wujiaochang originally had a cooperative. In the beginning, they also did very well. These workers were all disabled people, but then they became subject to official intervention. Because the director of the community committee wanted to make this into an achievement in her official career, she decided to support the project. Currently, each month they have to pay her a 500 yuan regular wage and let her be the leader. At any rate, this caused people to be at odds with the leadership. Originally, these women were united and cooperating for common enrichment. Everybody shared in the hardships. After this individual began to take a 500 yuan salary, other sisters in the cooperative left. Now they can't even complete an order of several hundred items. However, in the past, the cooperative used to be able to complete big orders of several thousand items, but the other three cooperatives are very successful. I'm now planning to establish a new cooperative here in the school headquarters because we can use this place made available by this businessman. We want to organize some of the people that have completed the training classes and can do this business well to create the fourth cooperative. We want to invest ourselves this time and make wool sweaters. We will purchase raw materials, make sweaters, and then embroider designs on the wool sweaters. Thus, we will go a step further than the other three cooperatives. I have some material about the plan here. Other people have told me what a great job that I'm doing, but I do not think that I'm doing anything extraordinary. You can take a look at this material.
Next, how would you analyze and evaluate the development of feminism on mainland, and how do you see its future?
In terms of feminism in China now, I think I probably have some biased views on it after spending years in activism. On the Women's Federation part, there have been consistent efforts to promulgate the basic national policy of the equality of men and women. They have done a lot of work in this area. But how do actual women awaken their consciousness and follow a path of self-liberation? How do they themselves go and put into practice the ideas of feminism? I have always thought that their work is insufficient. Our Women's Federation organization always has a kind of inherent insufficiency. The Women's Federation, for the most part, still has to follow directions from the top.
What influence has international feminisms had on your personal development? When was the first time you came into contact with feminism or heard of this concept?
This was a time period when I had just suffered a very big setback, and I was extremely stressed. I thought that I needed to resurrect myself. At that time, I was working at the women's cadre school. One day, I met with Wang Zheng. She and others were at the women's cadre school to give a talk about feminism. I started to feel that the way that they were discussing the issues had a human face, compared to the way we were talking about men and women's equality. It also was more stimulating in helping women achieve a kind of self-consciousness. Later, why was I able to establish this organization? Perhaps this had an influence on me. There was also the 3 studies for 10,000 days theory. This certainly had an enormous impact on me. These 2 things both influenced me.
During the process of feminist research or activities, what are your greatest gains?
I feel that there are a lot of things that still need to be done. It seems that the more things that I do, the more things that are that still need to be done.
You have done so many things and you have worked so hard. Sometimes when you have time to sit down, do you ask yourself, what are the goals of what you do?
I do not have any regrets. I went from 1 organization to 2 organizations. Currently, the first organization has already developed and spread to more than 10 provinces and cities. We are united. As for the second organization, this has grown even more. We have trained over 10,000 people free of charge. This has solved many people's problems. I've always thought that this work is really worth it. Certainly, I'm very tired from hard work. I got married to my second husband in 1990. He is a senior professor at Jiao Tong University's agricultural school. We were both the same year, and he had also lost his wife. At that time, when we decided to get married, I raised a prerequisite for marrying him. I said, "Currently, I have already reached retirement age, but I do not plan on ever retiring."
What did he say to you in response to this?
I had told him, after I retire, I will probably have more things to do than before. I have to be in charge of the National Association of Female Talentology. I will need to travel to many different places in the country. After 1994, I also established the Women's College. In addition, I still have a lot of work to do for the Women's Federation. These 3 things have been keeping me really busy. As long as I can still get around, I want to continuously work on these projects. He agreed with my plans. After he had retired, he continued to work on his projects for 4 or 5 years. Afterwards, because he was limited in certain ways, when he applied for another project, he did not receive support. Currently, on the one hand, he does a great job of taking care of the household affairs. In addition, he helps me handle many problems.
Does he wholeheartedly support you doing all these things?
Yes, but of course at times he may complain. After all, it has been like this for more than 10 years. He will soon be 70 years old. Sometimes he feels a little tired and a little lonely because he is often home by himself. So sometimes he does complain. I told him that when I could no longer get around, I would then come home and spend time with him. But now I can still run around, and the nature of my work requires that I still run. If I do not do this, then my work has no way of continuing to develop.
During this process, what do you feel has been your greatest loss?
From a very young age, I did not have a stable family. When I was young, my mother passed away. Then when I was middle-aged, my husband passed away. Afterwards, I created a new family. Originally, I hoped in my heart for the happiness of a family life in my old age. But when I look back on my life, if the children also want to enjoy the happiness of a family reunion, would they still be able to devote themselves to work? One of my children went from attending university to working at the university. After finishing his graduate degree at Fudan University, he stayed there to work. My other child is currently attending No. 2 Industrial University. Now as society develops, they cannot be content with the present situation. Therefore, they also will need to keep working hard. In society, it will be difficult for them to be able to support even themselves. So I told them, you struggle for what you believe in. I will struggle for what I believe in. I will struggle until I'm 80 or 90 years old. I receive a small amount of pension, so I will always have food to eat.
Do your children complain? They love you and they probably feel that you work too hard and that you should rest. After all, their mother is not so young anymore. If she continues to work like this, it is probably not good for her health.
First of all, do they have the ability to come and look after me? No. Secondly, I have to pursue my goals and my ideals. For instance, now I work for education for the general populace so that many women who find themselves in these difficult situations are able to get educated and become stronger. I also organize them to get rid of poverty together. If I gave up all of these projects, I would feel that I have no goals. I would only get older, and have no goals. How would I live in retirement? How do I spend the rest of my life? Working hard is still the most important. The ideal situation would be if the old and young, if everyone would work hard together. If we all support each other and enjoy our family life, this would be the best. But when you work hard, you find it difficult to find time for your family. You have to deal with contradictions.
How do you overcome these kinds of contradictions?
You can only try to get the family together for holidays. Actually, there really is no way of doing this.
What do you personally feel was the greatest difficulty in establishing a school, creating the Association of Female Technology, and providing education for the poor?
Of course, my greatest difficulties have always been in the area of funding. I did not have a guaranteed source of funding. In the beginning, when I started, I invested some of my own money. However, since I retired, my living standards became lower and lower in these years. After I had just retired, my wages were 700 yuan. There have been a series of adjustments made by the government, but now my wages are only 1,000 yuan. I must also take my husband into consideration. What if the two of us became seriously ill? I do not want my two children to take care of us. Because of this, I only intermittently spend money. I cannot give my own 10,000 yuan like I did when we were just starting out. Now my husband and I together receive only 2,000 yuan in pension per month. However, an even greater difficulty lies in people's lack of understanding. I frequently have a feeling of loneliness. In the area of education of the general populace, up until now, the only person that I have found who shares my common goal is Channing. There is no one else. When I first started this project, many people did not support me. This includes high-level people like Ye Shuhua. She is a delegate of the National People's Congress. She said to me, "Why do you make yourself suffer like this? You're trying to solve the problems of the disadvantaged groups that even the premier could not solve. So do you really think that you can solve these problems? I said, the premier has his duties as a premier. He must solve the problems of the country. I only want to solve the problems of a small area. I am starting a single spark. I can only maintain this small oasis. I will do whatever I can. As long as I can continue my work, I will do so. I feel that I exist in this world like a flash of light. But how long will this flash of light last? I am also very realistic. I can remain active for another couple of years. When the time comes, when I am really not able to get around, and when I really have no strength, perhaps this flash of light will be extinguished. But these 10 years of history can never be buried. I will not live forever. If someday some young people can take this light and continue this work, then that would be terrific. If no one does this, then do not worry about it. This is my point of view. I am prepared to face the possibility that this work started by myself has to be ended when I leave. If I become very ill, then I will have no choice but to give it up.
I've heard that your health is not very good.
In these past 10 years, I have had a lot of tumors.
When were these discovered?
In 1975, I had my first surgery. Then I had another tumor in my blood vessel in 1980, before my ex-husband got sick. I had another surgery. Then in 1994, after I remarried, I discovered another. At that time, because I was involved in the preparation for the World Women's Conference, I was extremely tired. Since I was running the school and preparing for the World Women's Conference at the same time, I was really exhausted. In 1995, the doctors identified a lump in my breast. I have had numerous illnesses, and my physical constitution is not very good. I am also very sensitive. I have always had surgery quickly so that the tumors do not take a turn for the worse. But because I quickly have a surgery, the cancer did not spread. I have had a partial mastectomy. In 1996, I had a tumor in my thyroid.
So altogether you've had 4 surgeries?
Yes, in addition, when I was young, I had tuberculosis. My second older sister died from this. She was 3 or 4 years older than me, but she died and I did not. I have also always had serious bronchitis. I have also had hepatitis and chronic stomach inflammation. At any rate, each part of my body has had some sort of problem. But my 2 children really understand me. My younger son said, "The most important thing for Mom is that she keeps doing her work so that she maintains her spiritual strength." My younger son said to my husband, "Uncle Zhao, you let Mother be busy. If she is not busy, she will collapse." As you can see, they really understand me.
At your age and in this kind of physical condition, what kind of responsibilities do you continue to undertake? Or what role do you play in feminist activities?
I think now I want to withdraw a bit from the Women's Federation. First, I would like to give up some of this work.
Does the Women's Federation currently employ you?
Yes, they have hired me back after I retired. After having done so much, now I want to concentrate my main efforts on the National Association of Female Talentology and the education of poor women. Second, I want to use my efforts to fully train Chen Ying. She understands my views and shares my goals. So, if she is well trained, I may be able to turn over more of my responsibilities to her.
Is this her only job now?
Yes, originally she worked at the Second Industrial University as a Women's Committee Party member, but she retired from that post. Now this is her only job.
So, do you pay her wages or is she a volunteer worker?
She is mostly a volunteer. We pay her 500 yuan a month. However, when we are especially busy, we pay her a bit of overtime.
Chen Ying really understands you and you have many of the same goals. Was this your influence or was she originally very interested in working with women's issues?
She has a really good heart. For many years, she has seen me run around doing different things. She has also witnessed what happened to my family and my health. She felt that she should do some things for society.
How would you evaluate your own life?
For my entire lifetime, from the very beginning until the end, I have pursued my goals under difficult circumstances. During this process, my life has been full of hardships. However, I have always tried to follow the path of striving to liberate my sisters in the country and myself. My path down this road has never changed. Even though I have made very big sacrifices, including when my husband passed away, and so on, these sacrifices also have had links to my work. Throughout this time, I have always worked, so I often did not take good care of my family.
Society has preconceived notions of women's roles in family. It degrades women who work outside and do not devote themselves to house chores. How have you tried to overcome such pressure in order to concentrate on your work? You have devoted yourself wholly to your work. As a woman who cannot look after her family, how do you deal with pressure from society?
I think I've tried my best in taking care of my family, both my old one and the one that I have now. In my past family, I took care of 2 parents-in-laws and raised 2 children. My husband's parents did not have work. In my current family, our 2 incomes are extremely not very high, but we exist as company for each other. We are a couple that is experiencing hardships together. I have diligently tried to undertake a lot of the housework. When I was widowed, I went to work during the day and did house chores at night. I think a person must fulfill his or her responsibilities to the country, to the people, and to their families.
Other people have called you China's Maria Jose. How do you feel about this?
I don't know much about this figure. Other people are making this comparison. I certainly have not studied what she did and then tried to emulate this. Only after someone wrote to me about this did I know that this person existed. But both of us want to do something about poverty. What I most reject is that there are huge discrepancies between poor and rich, that there are inequalities, that men and women are not equal, and that people in general are not equal. I always thought that one person's actions have the power to affect the whole group. People are concerned about the country and the people. Based on this idea, I feel that although at times I have sacrificed a lot of myself, in the end, it is worth it. Perhaps I have done part of the work and have helped some of the people. If this kind of ideal is something that everybody can accept, then it will spread and help more.